Hi guys, welcome to another tactical video. Today I'm going to be talking about an elite's choice, and that is tactical Terminators. These are pretty much favourites for a lot of people in terms of models and fluff, but they don't actually get that much use on the tabletop beyond people who have like models of them from box sets, that kind of thing. When they're starting out, they tend to like to use them to start out, and then they tend to fall away from a lot of lists, and generally they're seen as not quite as competitive as they could be. So for this I'm basically going to talk about what I like about them, how I use them, and also other ways they can be used effectively. And basically they can actually give you quite a lot to your list, but they're always going to be quite pricey. That's the only drawback. So anyway, basic squad of 5 costs 200 points. You can upgrade them to a squad of 10. You can take various upgrades such as heavy flamers, chain fists, cyclone missile launchers, and the assault cannon. Everyone comes with a storm bolter and power fists, so that's pretty good, and of course they'll come with Terminator armor. Basically, even though the storm bolter isn't a particularly good shooting weapon, it does have 24-inch range with 2 shots, and that's actually pretty good. Now, it doesn't seem too much, but if you have enough Terminators on the field, that can actually work quite well in your favour. So, basically, it may seem like a strange combination to have a Storm Bolter and then a Power Fist on the other side, but generally speaking, that's designed on purpose, and the idea is they are a jack-of-all-trades kind of unit, and they're not really something you should build a list around in general, unless you are playing a specific codex like Dark Angels, that kind of thing. But they are built to plug a gap, and what this means is if you're not sure what to face, or you've got spare points after a solid army list, and you've got your anti-tank, you've got your anti-infantry, you've got your range and all that kind of thing. Taking a squad of Terminators is actually a good choice because they're versatile enough to be able to handle any kind of situation, except for flies, of course. But basically, they can deal with hordes of infantry because they've got quite a lot of ranged firepower, and they could take a heavy flamer for only 5 points. They can deal with light anti-infantry firepower because they have the 2-up save. They have a 5-up invulnerable to protect them against low AP shots as well. And of course they have the power fist, which deals with vehicles, even AV-14, deals with anything fancy, and of course it deals with monstrous creatures. So basically they do have a tool for everything. Basically, even though they only have the power fist, if you think about it, they are actually putting out as much damage as Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminators for slightly cheaper. And of course, the main difference between them is the exchange defense for the firepower, because obviously Assault Terminators don't have any firepower, so it's not actually that bad. They can actually do quite a lot, because you're getting those more options, and they're still putting out the same kind of damage on the charge. Okay, it's not concussive, but that doesn't really matter. So yeah, if you aren't sure between the two, I would personally pick the tactical Terminators. Now, before I go into how to use them and stuff, I'm basically going to cover chapter tactics and how they relate to Terminators for obvious reasons. Certain chapters do better with them than others. Now, the best one I would personally go with is Imperial Fists, if you want to run Terminators as a specific unit choice, because of the reroll one on the bolters. That's actually going to come into play a lot more with Storm Bolters because of the extra range. It means you can actually put out quite a lot of DACA at 24 inches, well, 20 shots with a squad of 10, so that is pretty effective. Plus, if you put a character in there with Terminator armor, then you can take the Primax Wrath as well, and then suddenly that's quite a storm of fire at 24 inches, so pretty good. The other thing would be Iron Hands is always good because you get that 6-up feel no pain that makes them even more resilient and protects them against anti-tank fire slightly better. The other thing is Ultramarines if you want them to get into assault, because obviously again you can reroll ones for a turn. You can reroll snapshots if they're getting charged, and best of all you can reroll your assault distance for one's turn, of course. Whilst I wouldn't really say Raven Guard are going to give these guys any benefit whatsoever, Salamanders have a slight benefit if you take the Heavy Flamer upgrade, for obvious reasons. Even though Flamers shouldn't do you too much damage anyway, being able to reroll your saves against it is still very nice. But you also get the Mastercrafted Weapon on the Sergeant, which means you could have a Mastercrafted Power Sword, and that's actually going to benefit you quite a lot, because one of the main dangers of Terminators is that they're Initiative 1 in close assault. So if you're getting that Power Sword, at least you can kill a bunch of enemies first, a bit more likely at least, with 3 attacks on the charge and Mastercrafted, so it's not too bad. But another good chapter for them, and only in a specific build, is if you go White Scars and you run Khan. Now the reason for this is he gives your army Scout if they have a dedicated transport. So what's dedicated transport for Terminators? Well, that would be a Land Raider. So what this means is you could have a scouting or outflanking Land Raider. Obviously this works better with things like the Redeemer and Crusader than a normal Land Raider, but if that's something you wanted to do, then this is a way of doing it. You can do it with Terminators, so something to look at there if you want to do those kind of shenanigans. So personally I would pick Imperial Fists if you are just after the Terminators, but you know, they're effective for most armies, put it that way. Right, the other thing you can do with them of course is teleport. This is basically a deep strike, as usual. This seems to be a very popular delivery method for most people, and honestly, it's very, very risky. Obviously, the size of the base is pretty big, so you want to be careful about that. When you've got a bunch of them together, it takes up quite a big footprint, and if you've got 10 or more, then you know it's a huge footprint. So basically, when you're doing it, you want to be very careful. It's a lot of points to risk. Personally, if I was going to do it, I would look to make sure you've got locator beacons, teleport homers, that kind of thing. The easiest way to do that is to have other squads in drop pods going in first. Have a locator beacon on the drop pod, and then these guys can deep strike in next to it. Now, if you're investing heavily in this, you want things that will help manipulate your reserve rolls to make you a bit better off. But the good thing about tactical Terminators is at least they can shoot when they come down on deep strike, so they can actually do something. So it's not a bad way of doing things. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you some brief tactics that I've come up with for tactical Terminators. Now the first one is about deep strike. If you want to deep strike, here's a way of doing it. Here we have some Salamanders standing in as the enemy, behind a very small Aegis line, but you get the idea. This is pretty straightforward what's going to happen. So, first off, you would have some kind of locator beacon or drop pod or something over there. Okay, what happens is you take your squad of Terminators and you want to deep strike them in behind the Aegis line. Fairly obvious, okay? Now, the cover doesn't actually matter, okay? So, here's what you actually do. Because their armor save is better against your shooting anyway than the cover, it doesn't really matter. But one thing you should be aware of is that you can actually use the Aegis line to your own advantage. So if you wanted, you could go right in front of the Aegis line, and then you're getting a cover save from other weapons in the enemy army, which is obviously better than your invulnerable save. So, for example, say there's a huge squad of plasma cannon devastators over here. or say these are plasma cannon devastators, then the best thing you could do is get as close as possible. Obviously this would be twofold, because they don't want to put the blast so close to their own men, but the main thing is that you're at least getting a cover save against it, which is better than your normal save. So sometimes it's better to actually go on the other side of the cover. Now let's assume that's not the case and you want to go here. The other thing is you want to get as close as possible, and this is why locator beacons are so crucial, because the main reason is you want to be the 1 inch away maximum. This gives you 3 things. First thing is it restricts their movement, because they can't move within 1 inch of you, so they have to move around you, and you can actually use that to your advantage to funnel them into a bad place. For example, these guys want to move away from this Terminator, say, on their turn. They can't move this way because there's a whole squad of Terminators, so instead they'll have to move this way, and that exposes some out of cover, and then you can shoot them with plasma or something like that, or maybe it just boxes them up like so, and then you drop a big template on them, get more hits, flamers, that kind of thing. So you can actually control enemy movement that way. Now if they don't move, then obviously they're very exposed to a charge. So this is the second thing. It gets you incredibly close to a charge. It's almost a charge you can't fail, and that's important, because when you can, you want to be charging these Terminators in. There's pretty much nothing they can't kill. I mean, there's certain situations where you wouldn't want to do that, but that's the kind of thing you want to go for. Now, the third thing is basically that you can actually use this to cause hard choices to your enemy. So you can actually stop them from shooting. For example, this is a squad of Devastators for this example, okay? They have like las cannons and that kind of thing. This is the perfect opportunity to deep strike these guys in. Why? Because they're so close, these guys are going to get hit first by the firepower, okay? They have to move, because if they don't move, they're going to get assaulted and wiped out, okay? And you've got your anti-tank weapons against them if needed. Or of course you could just land here, that'd be even better. But the point being, they have to move away, and what happens if they move away? They snapshot next turn. So as you can see, that's a huge benefit to you, because suddenly you've removed a big part of the threat of the Devastator squad that turn. Now if they've got several Devastator squads doing the same thing, you can get several in one go, that kind of thing. Which reminds me, I should point out that you can of course multi-assault if you get the chance against infantry squads like this, then go for it. Terminators want to be targeting squads like this. Basically, they want to pick on the weaker infantry, that kind of thing, where they're basically going to destroy them in close combat and that kind of thing. So pretty effective, really. That is the deep strike thing, but again, I would not risk it without any kind of scatter prevention, that kind of thing. You really do need that kind of thing. Okay, and this should work for Dark Angels pretty well as well, because obviously they get the twin linked when they come down. They can come down turn 1, so it's even more effective. And of course, if they have Belial in the unit, they won't scatter, so, And the other good thing about this is it presents that threat immediately. So that's if you want to go for that. Now that would work best if you have several threats in the enemy deployment zone. Don't just put a squad of Terminators there and leave them to it. It's not going to work. They're going to get destroyed. I mean, okay, that may take shooting off your other units as well, so it can help you, but it's a bit of a waste because these are quite expensive models. So make sure you've got several threats there, where even if they kill the Terminators, you're going to be able to hit them back with something else, so the job's done. The second way of using them is to use them as a midfield force. So basically what I mean is you literally just walk them up the table. Deploy them as far forward as possible at the start. Big squad of 10, that kind of thing. Walk them forward, shooting all the while, shooting anything they can come into contact with. Now, this works best if you have some long-ranged elements at the back of your army, such as Devastators with heavy bolters, whirlwinds, thunderfire cannons, that kind of thing. You can combine your ranged shooting on infantry that you come across and just whittle it down to hell. Now the good thing is this effectively presents a wall to your enemy, because these are a midfield presence and they've got the range to touch anything. Combined with your backfield elements, it's actually quite a lot of damage. Infantry won't really be safe to go near it unless they go en masse, And basically, even vehicles are going to struggle because you can get the charge off with the power fists, kill monstrous creatures as well. It's a huge midfield presence, okay, and it can help you control it, so long as you have the synergy with the rest of your army. Again, this works best with Imperial Fists because of the reroll ones, but you know, it can work with any army really. So it's expensive, but it will pretty much control you the midfield so long as you have other elements. Now you need some distraction elements as well, like outflanking units, drop pods, that kind of thing at the back, and that will really help you out in their survivability and let them get forward. So try that out. The final way is basically, say you've got a bad matchup, okay? These tactical Terminators, no matter what, everything in your opponent's army is going to absolutely destroy Terminators. You're going to lose them by the dozen. One thing you can do with the Terminators is literally hide them near the back, okay? And keep them in cover, that kind of thing. Because of the 24-inch range, what they can do is outshoot other armies. So, for example, they can stay at the maximum 24-inch range, shoot as much as possible into infantry that gets within that range, and then just keep at range. And the thing is, they're 2 up armor save and 5 up invulnerable, or 4 up cover if they're in a rune, that kind of thing. That's actually going to keep them quite safe from return fire, because at 24-inch range and above, the amount of return fire you get is actually very small, because most things cannot keep up that kind of barrage. This works better again if there's multiple threats, but you know, they're not going to do as much damage in this role, but they're going to be able to plink away and survive and be an annoyance, so be a complete pain in the ass. And that's kind of what they want to do if they're on if they start off on the losing foot. But generally, there's pretty much a role you can always use them for, so that's something to consider. Basically, if you have the points for them, definitely look into it. They can give you a lot of benefits to your army. Just remember, don't waste them. Always have a plan for them to do something, because if you just throw them into a deep strike and you just like blurred or scatter somewhere, mishap, that kind of thing, even if they don't, they're just going to be sat there and not really affect the game much because they're going to get blasted. So remember, even when they deep strike and they're stood there helpless, they're not quite helpless so long as they're benefiting the rest of your army. So that is really something you should think about. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video is helpful. I will have more tactical videos soon. I'm going to be going through the elite section of the Space Marines, since it's been quite a while since I've covered Space Marines. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you like this video, remember to click like. Feel free to subscribe or comment. Thanks for watching.